that's been kicked in the nuts by fake news. Nobody knows what to believe.
I don't know what I said.
We need one maverick newsman to cut through all the noise and tell us what's really real.
I'm not that guy. Hello, shalom, and welcome to Really Real with Richie Redding. I'm Richie Redding, and tonight is going to be a little bit of a quicker one than usual because we may or may not have just spent like an hour and a half trying to figure out why this looks like shit, Bobby. I'm not blaming anybody in particular, Bobby. You think when you have a Proud Boy / American sniper terrorist that he would be able to figure these things out, no problem. But we're gonna get this figured out. Hopefully, this is the last episode that's gonna look like it's been shot on a Game Boy. There's a very expensive camera. State-of-the-art computers are involved. For some reason, it comes out looking like fucking an up the nose camera angle from a boomer on a flip phone. So I'm told that this will be figured out, and thank you guys so much for joining and commenting and sharing and all the things that we're supposed to do to make a podcast successful. I would be remiss if I did not do an update and just check in from my weekend. And I got to tell you, man, the vibes are weird. Were you on stage this weekend, Bobby?
I was twice.
How were the vibes?
They were a little weird.
Dude, I did 7 shows this weekend, and 4 people got thrown out, and 1 person walked out at one point of a show. Well, stormed off. Didn't walk out, just absolutely stormed off. It was actually funny as shit. It wasn't me that walked them. I wouldn't say that I was crushing it, but Adrienne Appalucci, who I love, she's the Queen of Darkness. She did a whole bunch of stuff on. It doesn't matter what the bit was, but I'm out of the room and I just hear some like clamor, and she's like, "Huh?" And this little man in a paisley blouse is the only way to describe it, with like a Freddie Mercury mustache, stormed out of the room, like clutching his pearls. And it turned out that like she literally did like a gay joke. Like that was it. It was just like something that referenced the word gay. And this dude freaked out. And I asked Damian Lemon, who was in the room and was going next, what happened. And he said that this dude just stood up and screamed, "Get some better material," and just ran out of there. And like, it was indicative of the whole thing. There's people complaining to staff all weekend, and like, it just, I don't know. There's something very specifically weird about this time of like, COVID's over, but it's not, and we're like waiting for the other shoe to fall type shit. And I think this actually perfectly encapsulated. Go to that article from The Hill. The National Customer Rage Survey points to a troubling trend among U.S. consumers that we're becoming more belligerent with customer service reps, and about 1 in 10 of us are interested in seeking revenge in the form of badgering, belittling, or threatening an employee, according to some of the responses of the survey. I don't want to sound too Pollyanna, but it's kind of horrifying. The president and CEO of the Customer Care Measurement Consulting told Nexstar, blah, blah, blah. Out of 1,000 respondents polled, 74% claim they've had an issue with a product or service in 2022, up from 66% in 2020. Of those, 63% said they felt some sort of customer rage during attempts to resolve the issue, which is the same rage percentage observed in 2020 edition, albeit one that now represents a larger number of infuriated customers. But like, I feel like that's almost like what it is that's bubbling over somehow into, because like, stand-up is the front line. You can pull that thing off there. Stand-up is very strangely like the the best focus group for how things are going in the country. And I've actually with my company, with Funnier Than You Are, I've done focus groups for corporations of basically just got like 5 comics that were like really diverse and got them to give their opinions on, these hot button issues that matter to these corporations. And their takeaway was like, holy shit, we had no idea. Because it's like, especially with like ethnic comics and stuff, it's like they are a focus group, a walking focus group of their own crowd, right? Like they know what's going to go over with their crowd better than anybody. And the people that were the least surprised, like of people in the city, right, that are like in the Brooklyn bubble and the PC now called woke bubble, were comics. Because like, we travel around, and my girl, her mind was blown when Trump won. And I was like, yeah, I've been to Ohio. Like I was in Ohio, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania in the last 2 months. And, there's some pretty pissed off people out there, and I didn't see too many Hillary signs. So, I don't know. There's something right now. People, motherfuckers, are just on edge, and it's like it's this thing where it's like the inflation of everything and the erosion of like everything that's normal just gets chipped away a little bit. Like how many times can your rent go up on you before you're like, you know what? Maybe 60% over 2 years is a lot, right? So now we get to deal with these same people that they have to pretend that everything's fine when they're at their, make work jobs, and then they come out for a couple of drinks, get belligerent, and start a staring contest with comedians and walking out. I don't know. It's a thing. I've got a bunch of shows this week. Hopefully the vibes change. Oh, what'll definitely change the bad vibes is St. Patty's Day. These people just get pants pissing drunk out in public. Let's see if dude, I'm calling this right now that we're going to see even more delicious rumbles, and I'm hoping it's girls. I want to see some girls really get out the aggression. There's hormones in the chicken, there's testosterone in them somehow. Let's see some fucking girl fights, baby. I'm a rambling old man. Bobby, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in crystal clear.
Okay, I miss your sweet laugh, you dear boy.
I must be holding the mic too far away. I apologize. I've been laughing all along.
Okay. And how thirsty do I sound? God, I sound like such a pussy now. do you approve of me? One person that I can say?
I need girl fights and laughter. You want to talk about something, Richie?
Yeah.
Everything okay? It's not your fault.
Right. I want to see some girls scratch each other up and then laugh it off. But, well, okay. I feel like I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it. It's been kind of covered to death, but the Silicon, I always mix those up. Silicon and Silicon Valley.
I think it's Silicon.
It is Silicon Valley, but I wish there was only one word. Silicone is the titties, right? Silicon is the microchips.
I'm just now learning there's a difference.
Yes, that's what it is.
I thought it was full of the microchips in the titties.
No, common misconception. Maybe, no, silicone would not be good. Because I was just thinking if you had that, what was that called? That's not a diphthong. The long O, it would be like syllaboobs, whatever. So I'm sure if you haven't been under a rock, you've been hearing about the Silicon Valley Bank thing, and it's the only reason I'm even bringing it up is that it's absolutely the perfect encapsulation of the shit that I was talking about a couple episodes ago, of everything culture war being a massive distraction from the real club, right? It's like that. It's that Carlin quote, like, it's one big club and you ain't in it, right? And it's the ultra wealthy against everybody else, and the proof positive of that that is just a cloak for the rich versus the poor. Is that uh, it's supposed to be, they keep calling it like the wokest bank, and McCarthy said it's the epicenter of wokeness. And yeah, they've thrown the word woke around 1,000 times with his bank, and it is like the bank for ESG and DEI and all this shit. But the person that had the most money in it and got it all out before it even happened was Peter Thiel, who is like the most activist right wing investor, right? Uh, and the way that the run started was that there's literally a Slack channel of CEOs telling each other that it was about to go under and they were going to pull out their billions of dollars. That happened like last Thursday night, and Friday night they started to pull it. And I mean, first of all, that's got to be some kind of collusion, but also like the actors involved were the well, so like on the liberal side, the reason they're saying that this bank can't go down is because of all the great ESG work that they do, and there's all these apps. And if this bank goes up within 10 years, we're going to completely lose the war on climate change, because that's the work that they're doing. Right. And not one of them can tell you how that what it actually is. So you got the most liberal facing products, like investment products, that are actually backed by Peter Thiel of fucking Palantir, which is like just the axis of evil of right-wing companies. And but together they all get one big bailout, right? And they're saying that it's not a bailout. It's just, I forget what the actual terminology they said for it. It's like, oh, we're just taking like protective measures. So they together between all these different investors. Well, first of all, the FDIC backs up anything over 250 or up to 250K. So the average person would not be that concerned if my TD bank account gets hit, I'm good. But 90% of the investors in this bank or of accounts were over $250,000. So these guys through mainstream channels and then everybody on their social channels basically created the first ever Twitter bank run. And they're all saying like they have to step in. This could be a contagion. That's what they kept saying. It could be a contagion. This is the best one. This guy Jason Calacanis, who's a tech investor, on his Twitter, all caps, "You should be absolutely terrified right now. That is the proper reaction." Yeah, that's not at all trying to start something, right? So they actually fucking created this situation where that every other bank was getting nervous because it looked like this thing might catch on. But meanwhile, it's just these crazy rich dickheads that had an insane amount of money. So they had horrible banking practices combined with just absolute schmucks running these companies. Dude, fucking Roku. Did you hear about this, Bobby? Roku,
yes, that is nuts.
Had $450 million in a checking account, and they're going to get all of that back, all of it. Like that's Floyd Mayweather level of fucking of money management. Remember that when there was the investor, or not the investor, a reporter was like rolling around with Mayweather, and he went and checked his bank account, his ATM, and he saw a receipt that said like $200 million for his balance in one account. That is what Roku is doing. But I don't know, man. It's just it's so fucking disturbing. And the Republican response to it was hilarious, because on Friday, before they really had time to process it, Tucker Carlson's on the air just talking about how Biden doesn't care that the whole system's going under and he's not going to do anything. And then last night he's on the air saying that it's it's fascist and it's communist and he's you're bailing him out and blah blah blah. But they're basically just Republicans in general are just blaming it all on wokeness. That like it was the wokeness of this bank that was what's causing this whole nightmare. and Democrats are just applauding them for stepping in and doing anything. But what nobody's talking about is the fact that the reason that it fucking happened is because they've jacked up interest rates like 7% over a year. And so they had all their money. Am I white-splaining this to you, Bobby?
No, I like it a lot.
Okay, so this is what happened, that they had all their money in long-term U.S. bonds, right? So like starting at like from anywhere from like 10 to 30 years. And since money was free for the last 20 years since Alan Greenspan, basically, they had all this money in these bonds that were paying out at most like 2%, right? But then for savings accounts, when anybody other than Roku that had everything in a checking account, for these billions and billions of dollars in accounts, they had to pay 7%, which is current prime, right? So every month they're losing 5%, whatever that margin is, they're losing all of that just because the fucking interest rates are going up. And like, so now they're stepping in, and what they're doing is saying that for any bank that gets hit with this, they can basically treat their bonds like their cash. And they're like, hey, you know how you gave us this money and we don't owe it back to you until like 30 years from now? We'll give it back to you right now. So it's like this get out of jail free with all this debt that they've bought up. It's just bizarre. And it's like, it's such obvious corporate welfare, but it also, this was not that big of a bank. And it's basically telling all the other banks, do the dumb, risky shit because we're going to bail you out. Right. And it's so fucking bizarre. Oh, and also it's like the biggest thing is that everybody loves to both sides this thing and point to. I saw my boy Donnie Trump Jr. talking about like, I can't wait until they blame Trump for this. Yar 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 yar. Right, it's fucking coke weasel. But it is what happened was during the Trump administration there was a vote that was passed by Republicans when they ran the Senate that clawed back all these restrictions on Dodd-Frank, which was the rules that were keeping this shit in check of like the deposits versus the balance and stuff like that. And Silicon Valley Bank lobbied to the tune of like up to $1 million to get that shit clawed back. And then they were the first ones to go tits up. Like, you can't write this shit. But also, on the other hand, it's not just a Republican thing. Fucking Barty Frank's fat gay ass he makes $1 million a year on the board of another bank that went under. And he also lobbied to get his own rules clawed back for the bank that he happens to sit on. Like, dude, if it's not the rich against everybody, what is it? What is the game? What's the fucking game? Right? Like, that's the only thing I care about with the Hunter Biden thing. Is like, wait, they gave this fucking kid $600,000 for not doing shit? Fuck this guy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, jerk off, smoke crack, fuck hookers. $600. Woo. All right. Now that I've caught you up to that, was that weird? My just crash course on what that was?
No, it makes sense because you hear it's a run on the bank, and then if you try to do any information or like learn anything from it, you either hear, like you said, somebody went in and robbed it using bad language because it was so woke and that's how it happened, or it was the Republicans set us up for it. So to know they kind of planned it.
Yeah. Yeah, to a certain extent. Right. Well, and I mean, it's just that time bomb of raising interest rates like that over such a fast time period. Like, that it's the thing that they've said all along is that like if interest rates don't hit you on the way up, they're going to catch you on the way down. So like, even if you don't, even if you're not selling your house or something like that, or you're not trying to buy a new house and like that, and it's not going to bother you, then, well, what about when all these companies start fucking, having to pay with cash instead of with free money that they're getting, and they start shaving jobs off? Like that's when it hits everybody. The fact that that the corporate bailout happens, and also shitbags like Peter Thiel get all of their money back, right? That who's like, I'm pretty sure I know his stance on canceling student loans. Right? So it's this like pervasive thing. It's the most hypocritical shit in the world, where it's like libertarian on the way up and then communist on the way down. Socialism, like, oh fuck, I'm in free fall. I need my money back. Where's the system? The system needs to backstop me. Yeah, it fucking makes me sick. But okay, let's move on to something way more fun. I I saw this on Twitter. It's a great account. It's at obtainer of, and the long form of it is obtainer of rare antiquities. Uh, you got that picture, Bob?
Yes. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. It involves our boy Marlon Brando, who, I mean, it's really just brilliant. The self-inflicted demise of that man while still staying in the public eye is phenomenal. So the headline of it, or the main tweet is, this is just in time for the Oscars party. That's why I'm bringing this to you. Just not just in time for the Oscars, rather. I didn't get invited to any parties. At an Oscars after party, Brando challenged Paul Newman to an egg eating contest due to Newman starring in a film where he eats 50 eggs. Newman said no, but Brando had dozens of eggs brought to the party and ate 51, the entire time calling Newman a coward and a fraud. So, dude, the everything about this is so fun. Hey, Bob, anytime on that picture, pal.
It's not in there.
But it's not in there. It's on the actual document. You
The
silly boy.
the Reinhardt photo?
No, you're not getting it.
No, I don't. Hang on, let me refresh. Maybe.
Hmm.
Now
You
it's here.
silly,
My
silly
bad.
boy. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's that huge picture. Yeah.
Now I've got it.
So, I mean, the single focus of, and the insanity at that point of fucking of Marlon Brando to, first of all, just do this at an Oscar party where everybody has to be partying, trying to get laid. They're all rubbing elbows and shit, right? So like, it's not the fact that he's this incredibly handsome young actor that's like basically knocking off Brando from his perch as that thing. It's you're a fraud because there's no way you can eat all those eggs. Like, I mean, that's the equivalent of like challenging De Niro to a fight after Raging Bull, because like there's no way you can box like that. Right? But that his machismo goes into how many hard-boiled eggs that he can eat is just so fucking funny. So here's the rest of the thread is where it really gets fantastic. So it's just more facts about Brando. He was known for distinguishing himself at night and frequenting the hot dog stands of LA, putting back half a dozen dogs at a time. His favorite sandwich was a pound of bacon on an entire loaf of bread. Dude,
Jesus.
dude.
That's a man.
Yeah. Remind me to tell you the Lance story as soon as I'm done with this. But the most recognizable person on earth at that point, right? He's like, I mean, not the most, but like LA knows celebrities. They know who's around. What could he possibly have disguised himself with? Like a pair of lady sunglasses and like a gardening hat or something. And he's, "Hey, look at my six dogs." uh, in a truly bizarre moment during the filming of Missouri Breaks, Brando plucked a live frog out of a pond, took a bite out of it, and tossed it back.
What?
It's these are all so good. Film fans may think that in Apocalypse Now, Brando as Kurtz was always shown in the dark for stylistic reasons, but it was actually just due to the fact that he was so large he had to be hidden. Later in life, he promised his girlfriend that he would lose weight, but after months of strict diet, there was no change. She discovered that Brando had been paying a local boy to toss bags of Burger King Whoppers over the walls of his estate at night, which that's the same thing that was it Brian. What was the Beach Boy? Look up Beach Boy Brian for me.
Johnson?
That huh?
Brian
Yeah,
Johnson?
he was it Brian Johnson?
Let me check.
But he stayed like he was bipolar, and when he found cocaine, he did it at the first time at a party, and he bought $1,000 of it on the spot, and then bought another $1,000 before he left, and then he had the guy deliver him $1,000 of cocaine that night. And is it Brian Kelly?
Wilson. Brian
Wilson.
Wilson.
Yes. Yeah. Laying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. So he went to rehab and he was bouncing off the walls the whole time. They couldn't figure out why. And it was because before between the intervention and when he actually went, he got a hold of his drug dealer and told the dude to just keep firing bags of coke over the walls of the rehab and like way more than he needed every day, just because it was like a calculated loss that there was going to be attrition, right? That like the rehab was going to get some of them, but this dude's just throwing like $1,000 worth of blow over the walls a day, which was also must have been amazing for the other junkies in there. And also, it's not like the fucking orderlies, the guys that are like cleaning up in LA rehab are the most pure people on earth, right? So these dudes are just getting hit with fucking condoms full of blow. So funny. But again, the Marlon Brando thing's about to take a turn, just so you know. Maids who worked for Brando said they would lock the fridge, but he would break in anyway. Mouse traps in his basement would be checked, and half of the vermin's body would be gone. Pets in the neighborhood went missing at alarming rates. Get the fuck out of here. My man was eating mice out of the... Like, dude, that's the wildest mental illness I've ever heard of. I mean, there's a hantavirus? No, I'm calling horseshit on this part. Hantavirus is fucked up, but this part's great. Brando owned a private island in French Polynesia, and he invented a snack he called real-life mound bars. He would crack a coconut, then stir in sun-melted chocolate before devouring. Dude. I mean, first of all, it takes some real man strength to just crack it. Like that is caveman strength right there. But this is the only one that sounds downright sexy. During 9/11, Brando was fleeing New York City in a car with Michael Jackson and Elizabeth Taylor, just a few totally normal, not completely fucked up people. The two were frustrated by Brando forcing the driver to pull over every time they passed a fast food restaurant on the highway. And then in his old age, you have to get this picture. I should send it to you. In his old age, just look up Brando fat in doorway. His old age, Brando ballooned to an imposing 400 pounds. Workers at an LA diner say that Brando would be wheeled in and order multiple bacon and egg sandwiches, which consisted of eggs wrapped in bacon, no bun. I mean, that was kind of keto. You have that picture?
Yep, pulling it up right now.
Yeah. No, that's on the set of Dr. Moreau. Let me see if I can get the one that I wanted over to you. So yeah, that one is you actually get a lot of that shit from the documentary Val.
Oh, okay.
And he was super excited to be what just happened? You got me?
Oh, is it like a window doorway? Because I think I just found it.
Yeah.
I got it here.
He was super excited to be working with Marlon Brando, and it was like way later in Brando's life. It was when he had that white shit all over him. And they're in the jungle. It's a nightmare of a shoot. There's this scene where he's like, well, Val Kilmer's like all down in the dumps, and he wants to like go get some sage acting advice. The before and after. You got to like go way out on that. You can't really see him. You're in too close. Yeah, so that's Stanley. Mm-hmm. Dude, time is a motherfucker, huh? But what's amazing is that they kept putting that fucking. You had to go undies, huh? You had to show us the undies.
It's important to know how bad he's doing.
Yeah. But they kept putting him out there. Right? Like,
yeah.
If you don't think there's a double standard in terms of beauty in Hollywood, I mean, like Rebecca De Mornay can't get a role these days, right? But they were putting him out until like a year before he died of fat. But yeah, in that documentary, Kilmer goes over to try to get some sage advice from Marlon Brando, who's in he's in a hammock, and he's like, hey, it's Val, I'd love to talk to you. And he just goes, push. And finally, Kilmer gives him a little push, and he goes, yeah.
Oh.
That's the whole interaction. All he would do is let him push him. And they had to keep using a body double because he wouldn't come out in the heat. And the body double was like 200 pounds less than him because there was just nobody hanging around this jungle that happened to be 400 pounds.
Oh my God.
And that's also why they painted him white like that, because they were trying to distract from the obvious fact that it wasn't Marlon Brando. But the Lance story. So in my when it was time for old Richie to get sober, I moved back in with my parents in South Jersey, and there was this guy who legit had the same body as Brando at the end there, right? And he was the single fattest man to rely solely on a bicycle as his only means of transportation in the world. You've never seen a dude go this slow all the time. But like, dude, I mean, I would see him 10 or 15 miles away from our house, which is where we would usually, like it was always like within a mile of us. With like, so I knew he lived around there, but I would see him 15 miles away and always going so slow that he could like, you didn't believe that he could maintain momentum. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like it would be impossible to balance with, I mean, like 400 pounds and it was just like a Kmart bike. Like the bike wasn't shit. And then you would catch him a lot of times just taking a breather. And he would like just pulling the shirt off, just doing one of these,
Oh
but
man.
just so much hanging out. And we called him Lance because it was, Armstrong days. And the there was this like local. I mean, when I tell you it's not even a town, it was Sweetwater, New Jersey. There's literally not one stoplight there, and there's one store that's available for like this whole probably 5 mile long area. Way back in the sticks, and I would see Lance there sometimes, and the girls there told me like that he had just left, and they were like, oh. And they said that he went there every day and he bought a pound of bologna and a loaf of Wonder Bread. And he sat there and ate the whole fucking thing with no condiments. He didn't buy a drink. There was a hose there, and my man just drank out of the hose every day. That was his snack. And I mean, like the dude was, but he was also super creepy, like super duper creepy. Like if he wasn't actually riding, he would just like real slow, like watch your car go by, and he just had this like, he was obviously touched, right? Like something was wrong with you, man. There's Lenny. It was like a malicious Lenny from Mice and Men kind of feeling, and I made friends with this dude who was family friends with his next door neighbor, and they did. Oh, and he also that like when you would go by, like whenever he passed anything, he had the ring ring, he had the little shit, the
Oh
creepy
no.
little ring ring, yeah, and his so the next door neighbors hated this guy, right? And he was like 40 and he lived with his parents, and they had like tweens, and they didn't want their tweens anywhere near this guy. And like, they weren't allowed to play when Lance was like out in the backyard kind of
Why?
shit, because he would just, huh?
Why? I can't imagine why they
Why?
didn't want that.
Yeah. They're fat phobes. Um, Body shamers. Uh, so they decide they're going to I think it was to Myrtle Beach, and they wanted to take a family vacation. And part of it was like, we want our kids to just be able to run around, have a normal fucking day, not worry about the creepy ass neighbor. And they get there, and day one, they're all at like a outside brunch type thing, and ring ring, Lance rides by at 0.5 miles per hour, and
No
they
way.
freak the fuck out. Like, what is happening? They pictured this dude doing like the Cape Fear, just hanging his fat ass onto the bottom of the car. And they so the lady calls the neighbor, his mom, and she's like, "Hey, yeah, just he's here. What is happening?" She's like, "Oh yeah, well, you know how he loves to ride his bike. So once a year, we get him a bus ticket, and he goes down to Myrtle Beach, and he just rides and rides." Dude, the cosmic odds of planning your vacation at the same time as the creepiest fuck of a neighbor possible is just wild, dude.
I can't even
Absolutely
imagine.
wild. Yeah, full on Marlon Brando. Ring, ring, just goes past you.
Oh
Yeah.
god. That bell's gonna
Yeah,
trigger some repressed memories for some adults in your neighborhood.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's creepy. Actually, the guy that told me that is he's a newscaster now that he got canceled for a hot mic situation. We got to bring that up one of these days. It's I mean, look up Matt Piper canceled. Why not? Nobody's really watching this yet. I'm not actually friends with him anymore. It was he was He was a newsman. He finally got this job. He was working in like the middle of nowhere, and then he got a job in like the Bronx as a street correspondent. You getting anything?
Give me 1 second. I think so.
It's Peiper. Let's go hot mic. There we go.
I'm just trying to see if I can find it. Like the actual.
If I can, yeah. I do know that he wound up doing, he went to like Iowa doing the radio after this happened.
Is that him?
There's bloopers that got reporters fired. This is just good broadcasting here.
Is this him, Richie?
Wait a second, coming back. No, he's like super blonde guy.
Let me just see.
I
I think
might
this
have
might
it.
be it. He
I
dropped.
might have it. Oh wait, he had two of them. He dropped.
I've got it.
It's going to be way degraded video. There's one on the street that's super fun. He dropped an F-bomb.
We're showing you the latest on the roads and rails, plus another look at your weather on the tubes. But first, here's a quick look at the results so far to our question of the day. We're asking, what are you doing to save the planet? If you haven't...
Okay, never mind.
Maybe it's just my crackling voice because I have a sore throat. Maybe that's what you're hearing. Oh, I'm getting used to this. I'm gonna bask in the ambiance.
Wait, is it? What just happened? I couldn't tell what
I
happened
think
there.
I qualify.
Government assistance, but it's true. I mean, how old are these kids?
Thank you.
Wait,
Well, I
go back to that.
He
rely on government
Yeah.
assistance for their entire lives.
Did he just say that?
Alicia. He wants you to also mention that parents should do their fucking job and walk their little kids to school on their own and not rely on everyone else, kind of like people rely on government assistance for their entire lives.
Did he just say that?
Alicia.
Did he just say that?
he actually
So, yeah. So he thought they'd already tossed it. Is like, the quote was like, or maybe parents should just do their fucking job. I mean, how old are these kids? They're just gonna rely on public assistance for the rest of their fucking lives. Live mic, which also shows you how much shit these people talk behind the scenes anyway. But the best part of that story was that he won a daytime Emmy because that happened like it was like and he got fired like immediately, but that happened like 2 months before the Emmys, but they had already been voted on like 4 months before that. So they had to super begrudge. He wasn't even invited to the Emmys, but they just had to super begrudgingly give him an Emmy in the mail. Good times. All right, there was a little payoff for that. But dude, think of a thing that's so funny about Brando is like, think of how many people are like had great like sexual encounters with Brando that they were super happy with, that they fucking bragged about it their whole life, and then he turns into that, like, son of a bitch.
You mean the dude who's eating half a mouse? You fucked the dude who ate half a mouse?
Yeah, Richard Pryor is like, yo, I fucked him way before he bit frogs, bro. That's one of my favorite things to bring up with black comics is Richard Pryor and Brando fuck it. And I always insist that Brando was the top, and it really chaps their ass something fierce. It's so funny. I don't know why it matters, but it does. And it's just great. It's just great. But wow. So I forgot to start my timer once again. How far in are we, Bobby?
About 43 minutes.
Perfect. So I promised you, Robert, the last time that we did this, that we're gonna do my close encounters of the pedo kind with my my experience is that and also just catching up, I came across something. I don't know if it was just because of the algorithm or whatever, but remember the East German rowing story that I told you?
Yes, I do.
East Germany still has the highest medal count for rowing collectively in like the history of the Olympics, and they haven't existed since 1991. That's how dominant they were. So even given a 32-year, like a deficit basically in chances to earn medals, that's how many they have.
And you got to think the Grinks had a hell of a head start. So that's even more impressive.
Yeah. Their weird arm wrestling notwithstanding. Okay, so I wound up so I was on the junior national team for 2 years in a row, right? And I was the coxswain, the little guy. Let's face it, the little guy that steers boats. You saw that picture that I put up with that, right?
Yeah, that was awesome.
It looks like a 5-year-old hanging out with a bunch of 25-year-olds, and those guys also happen to be 16 or 17. But yeah, so the rules for it are that you can't be 18, you can't turn 18 in the year of the games of the race, right? So that it's weird math, but that's how it works out. And like some of my best friends I made there, and it definitely changed my life, and it's the reason that I wasn't going to Penn, let's put it this way, if I wasn't a 2-time junior national team coxswain. And we had a reunion of sorts. Also a preface that it started at Boston University, and then everybody goes to if you make it, you go to the Gunnery School in Connecticut, which is this liberal arts school, and not liberal arts, it's a boarding school rather, super liberal. And so 2 summers of my life, like whole summers, were spent there. And we have this reunion, and I see these guys, and this is like 12 years ago that I see all these dudes. And I'm like, hey man, I haven't heard from Reinhardt forever. Like, what's that fucking guy up to? And like you hear the glass drop, and they're like, dude, how do you not know this? I'm like, what? They're like, he's in prison. I'm like, what for? And they just go, yeah. Like, yeah? They're like, yeah. Like, oh, okay. And like all of a sudden, so like before, okay, yeah. He had like total Tommy Lee Jones kind of vibe, right? Like Mr. Macho guy. But,
she's only 14. I don't care.
She? And you can pull him down, but or Dawn, I don't care. So the whole story with him started to get weird. That's too much, Bob. That's too much, Bob. Too much, Bob. Okay. Just trying to scoot that pedophile out of the way. So he was like the cool guy coach, right? But like after when I was already in college, he got outed by like he had a dating profile on like it was like gay.com or something like that, right? And a kid found it and put it on the school's message boards. And because it's this super liberal university, or not university, but this super liberal boarding school, instead of making any kind of correction, they overcorrect, and they made him the dean of students, right? So he like immediately got promoted. And when that happened, it was like, okay, cool. Like, all right. And now that earring starting to make sense. And it was like every time we saw him after, like when I was in college, it was like, man, did those shorts get higher? Like, what happened? Like he had like Officer Dangle shorts. And but so this, let me find this article about Bob. This shit is so creepy. So he's sentenced to 9.5 years in prison, followed by 30 years probation, and uh, just the breakdown of it was that, so they said he was a hebephile, which I didn't know what that was, but it's like just turned teenagers, and he had several of the relationships began as friend or father son type relationships that escalated to sexual encounters, and he pled guilty but didn't admit wrongdoing. But when when the cops raided his place, he had like it was something like 32 pairs of boys boxers that all had initials on them, like straight up Dexter trophies. I can't tell you how badly I want to know if there's an RR on them, but yeah, apparently the move was that it was always like the kids from whose parents were going through a divorce, some shit like that, that like needed a shoulder to cry on, and this fucking dude came in, and when something like that happens, you like kind of immediately are like, wait, was there any kind of signs of that? And I mean, dude, I spent a ton of time like we trailered boats like 8 hours at a clip sometimes for races, and there was a comment that he made. There was like one time that he said something about like fucking girls with his college roommate, and I was like, "You're like naked with another dude?" He's like, "Yeah, you never like walk around naked and like see your buddy's cock?" I'm like, no, I'm 16. Like, but it was just like a hard fucking no, man. And he like dropped it there, but in hindsight, that was like absolutely kind of testing the waters type thing, And and then the other thing that made sense from the court sentencing was that he was he was the freshman coach at Boston University, which is like, it's one of the top 40 probably rowing coaching jobs in the country. And then he left there and just became this average ass high school coach in the middle of nowhere that he's totally overqualified for. And like, it felt weird at the time. Like, it felt like a massive demotion, but it just didn't make any sense. But like, apparently that's a thing that these predators do, is go somewhere. It's like, if your real motivation is that, who cares about the money, right? Like, he's in a position with literally hardly any adults and hundreds of kids. Like, dude, it's fucking nuts, right? So that's at this same get together. They tell me that, and I'm on the phone like, holy shit. I'm like, all right, so what's up with Coach Hogan? And they're like, how do you know this, man? Like, what? I don't know what happened. Like, I was so unplugged from this whole fucking scene. And he got outed by Fox National News. So okay, so this is the assistant coach to Reinhardt this whole time, right? And he was the coach of my boat my junior year, and he was a great coach until we got to Poland for the World Championships, and it was like he threw one of those ninja smoke bottles and just bounced. Like, we just didn't see this dude anymore. And like, I mean, it was literally like a week that we just didn't have a coach because we couldn't find him. And then he starts coming around, but he's got this like very young girl, this Polish girl, who would always like be signed into the enclosure, which is like, you can't get in there without being like escorted in. You have to, it's like there's security for this race. and she's just always super awkwardly like off in the distance and shit. And then the second we got back, he'd be gone, and we wouldn't see him until the next practice, right? I mean, and mind you, he is a chaperone of 5 under 17-year-olds in Eastern Europe in 1995. Not the safest place in the world, right? And he's just like, peace. And then he's also supposed to escort us back, and we have a layover in Belgium, right, for a night. And last minute, he was like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go see some sights here. You know, I wanna do the whole concentration camp thing." And he decides not to go with us. So I was in charge, just because I was the coxswain. It was like to travel internationally before the internet, like knowing nothing whatsoever. There's like no phones. We couldn't even tell our parents this shit. He just fucking disappears, right? So he winds up, so like after like a month, he finally goes home. This married guy goes home to his wife. And like months later, they start getting weird phone calls and shit that it's like, on the 1990s lag and like can't make it out. And then finally, this chick got a letter translated by somebody that spoke English, completely pouring her heart out and wants to marry him. And when are you coming back for me? Like you said you were going to. And like, I thought we were engaged and blah, 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 all this shit. And the wife is the one that gets this picture, this envelope that's got like 1,000 stamps on it, right? Because it's these failed fucking economy Polish stamps that are worth like 1 zloty a piece. And so the story was that apparently they just turned in, like she left him for like a semester, and then they just turned into the campus weird sex people. And it was like they were like known swingers on this campus, and that's actually why Reinhardt got his job, was because like they were like the weird sex people. So it was like, oh well, let's put this wholesome gay guy in charge instead. So and again, I could give a fuck about gay. Who cares? It's like saying I got a bunch of black friends, but whatever. And then when I asked them about Hogan, they're like, dude, how do you not know this? Like, what happened? Like, he got outed by Fox National News. Well, it was an affiliate, but Fox National picked it up that he had also taken over as like dean of students at some obscure, very liberal New England school. And some gotcha journalist in a parking lot finds out that he's doing gay porn. Well, like just runs up on him. Pull up that picture. You might need to disable the old ad blocker there.
Is this what you're looking for here?
Oh no! That on the actual name, there's the
Gotcha.
link that you can click. But I mean, that's worth pulling up. So he gets outed for doing gay porn. He was a very literary guy, and his porn name was Hitchcock. And I would love to tell you that I didn't go home and immediately look it up, but yep, there's old Hitch. There's old Hitch. It's not the best picture, but man, does he look like a creepy fucker. And at first it was like, because it had been 15 years since I had seen him, and then there's like a big Celtic cross on his back. Like, yeah, that thing makes a lot more sense now, huh? A lot more sense. But yeah, they just rolled up on him in like a parking lot with a camera in his face and confronted him about doing porn. And the school winds up firing. You can pull that down, Bobby.
Well,
school winds
real
up
quick,
firing
Richie.
him and shit. Yeah.
You mentioned last week how many subscribers you have on YouTube. How many do you have now?
I didn't check because it is utterly depressing, but why do you ask?
I just want to compare it to how many subscribers Mr. Hitchcock has.
What's he got? I'm nervous. Very nervous. Last check, it was like 125. Wait, 1950? No, he's porn star ranking 1950?
He has 72, so you're doing better than him.
Hell yeah.
Who's the coach
Hell
now,
yeah.
Mr. Hitchcock?
Yeah. I didn't even have to cock torture a twink. How do you like that? No, neither cocks nor balls were tortured in the gating of my followers. But I bet you one thing, Bobby, his fucking resolution is a lot higher. You fuck.
We're working on it.
Yeah. But yeah, so dude, those two guys were in charge of, I mean, not just myself, but 40 other kids for 2 entire summers. As far as I know, we made it out unscathed. Wild. But the Hitchcock thing reminds me, we haven't talked about this at all, but the weatherman for the New York City weatherman. Do you know about this dude?
Eric Adam A?
Yeah.
Not to be confused with
which is
Eric Adams.
It's really hilarious how they have basically the same name. But yeah, it's for people that aren't familiar with it, it's the local New York City weatherman that was an Emmy winner, not unlike my old neighbor. And somebody sent pictures or like screenshots of him doing like nude modeling, like gay nude modeling to what was it, Pix 11, or was it like Channel 12? I forget which station he was with, and he got fired immediately. And it's like, yeah. So and there's a lawsuit going on. I thought the lawsuit was that he was suing them, like the station, but it's actually that he's suing whoever sent the pictures, because he says that he didn't. Oh, it was New York One. Says that he didn't. It didn't consent to the pictures being uploaded, which you were probably on meth, dude. I don't know. Like, how thoroughly did you? Yeah. How thoroughly did you read that fucking disclaimer that you signed, that release form, when you're rock hard and fucking coked up? Probably not that thoroughly. But, dude, it should absolutely be freaking out a whole bunch of people, because with as many as, dude, the OnlyFans thing is so much more pervasive than I thought it was. And like, there's a lot of unsuccessful OnlyFans shit out there, and like, that's not going to go away when you pull down the account, right? And there's incredibly important news. I saw flash. Yeah, and like, I'm friends with some girls that have successful ones, but that it is definitely arguably very worth it, like very, very worth it, that they're in a whole different fucking tax bracket because of it. But like, I know another comic that she mentions it all the time on stage. She's like, yeah, I don't really promote it, but if you want to check it out. And then every fucking other like story of hers, it's like a literal close up of her butthole on Instagram. And like, hey, if comedy doesn't work out and OnlyFans doesn't work out, that shit is coming back to haunt people, dude. And like, I don't know. And I feel like there's this feeling that like, they actually say it in Euphoria, that it's like the one girl that had a whole bunch of porns made of her. She's like, oh, by the time I'm 21, like, it's going to be, everybody will have nudes of them. Like, yeah, they also won't.
Go visit the Midwest.
Yeah. What do you mean, that will care?
Yeah, where they like, because the people on the coast get wrapped up into, oh, everybody does it, nudity's not a thing, but like, there's a whole middle of the country where that stuff really still matters.
Right. Yeah. And just your kids are going to find this shit. I don't know. I just ran into a weird fucking blind alley here. But what I wanted to get to the Jared from Subway story, since we went down this whole
Pun intended.
pedo lane here. Yeah. But I think we're a little long on time, but this thing is it's super disturbing. But what I didn't know at all was that the way they actually wound up catching him was because they looked into his business partner. Remember the business partner got raided first?
Yeah.
They were looking for bestiality videos because his business partner got his wife to fuck a horse for Jared. That's how wild it was. Like, just how completely depraved. So I wind up looking up the laws, and it was something at the time, like, it wasn't illegal. What she did technically wasn't illegal, but having the video of it was. So they were just looking for the video so that they could get that couple on, and they just lucked up on the whole thing for the Jared stuff. But the reason that it wasn't legal, or that it wasn't illegal, was because Indiana. I went into this whole crazy fucking click hole here, and hey, viewers, listeners, I'm going to treat you to yeah. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, Bobby. Keep that in. I tell everybody I farted and shit myself at the same time. The reason, so Indiana wrote all of its bestiality laws for one guy, and it was defined at the time as any penetration of an animal sex organ by the human male sex organ commits bestiality at level 6 felony. So they had basically overlooked the whole possibility that Jared from Subway's partner's wife might fuck a horse. So it's only bestiality if you're the top. Apparently, if you're the bottom, you're just a good time. But pull up, my man, click on that name, Michael Bessiagino. I don't know, you're the guinea around here. Tell me, how do you say that?
I think you nailed it. Bessiagino.
Bessiagino. Yeah, so he his history, they could not look at this fucking guy. That, my friend, is a chicken fucker. His history was all over the place, just terrorized the state of Indiana. In 1991, he interfered with a goose. In 1994, a Rottweiler. He killed his neighbor's Rottweiler and fucked it. In 2001, he stole a chicken from a farm and fucked it to death in a hotel, which he did 4 years for. 2008, he had some random undisclosed parole violation. 2017, a guinea hen, which is way more attractive than a chicken. And then he finally asked to be chemically castrated. And I can't find anything else other than that come on. What they should give that guy is a fucking cassowary. Right? Yeah. You remember the cassowary from the last episode?
How could I forget?
Give that guy a Viagra and a limited playing field, and let that cassowary fucking seek justice for all the birds out there. But Michael, whatever the Bessiagino, may you burn in hell. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm having a ton of fun doing this. It's a damn shame that it looks like we're filming this on, not even, I would be thrilled if this looked like a Ring camera at this point, Bobby. Are we doing like an old-timey lens flare type thing? Are we putting Vaseline on my camera when I'm sleeping? I don't know what's going wrong, but we're banking this right now because we are going to start releasing it as a podcast. And I thank you guys so much. Those little button thingies, share and comment and like and suck a dick, all the things that you're supposed to do if you like a show and you want to support it. Can't thank you guys enough. I'm having so much fun. Bobby, thank you. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
In a world that's been kicked in the nuts by fake news, nobody knows what to believe.
I don't know what I said.
We need one maverick newsman to cut through all the noise and tell us what's really real.
I'm not that guy. I'm just going to cover all of the dumbest stories that ever went viral.